cold unless it's well stretched and shellacked, so I'm going to get some shellac out here. My father was born March 2nd, 1939. He was the second of 3 children. He has an older sister and a younger sister. His older sister is playing the organ for us. This is Aunt Kit, or Catherine. And then his younger sister is Aunt Tara. I was talking with Aunt Kit about his youth and when he was growing up. And he just had a great childhood. You got to understand where they lived. They lived in Pleasant Grove, Utah. And they were right at the edge of the community. So basically, from where he lived, you crossed the road and you were in the foothills. And you're climbing the mountains. And he used to do that quite a bit with you when he was a kid and just run all over the place. When we would take our family vacations every summer, we would stay up in the canyon just short of there. And I spent many, many hours having a good time just climbing all over those foothills thinking, man, my dad had the best neighborhood. This is where he grew up. And he would play with his sister too. I remember when I was young, my dad taught me how to swim. My dad was a really strong swimmer. And I can just remember him gracefully moving across the swimming pool as he taught me how to swim, especially when he did the side stroke. And for some reason, he did side stroke, so I wanted to do the side stroke. And that's what I've learned. Well, he was afraid of the water. I never knew this, but he said when he was young, he and Kit were playing and they were down by the creek. And as he tells it, he was on a little footbridge and he fell off the footbridge and there was a nail that hooked the back of his overalls and held him face down in the water. So Aunt Kit, immediately started laughing. It was funny. And after a while, she became concerned, and so she went up and she got Mom. And so, Dad was here, and the rest of us as well. So for the longest time, he was afraid of water. And so he got a little bit older, and he wanted to learn to swim, and he's out with some older boys, and they're trying to teach him to swim, and they've taught him all the moves, and he knows how to move his arms, but he just can't swim. And he kept trying, and they finally got disgusted, and they were going to leave him. And he kept begging, you're going to teach me how to swim. So they picked him up, and they threw him in the middle of the pond. And he swam to the edge. So they picked him up, and they threw him back. And that's how my dad learned that endurance to just keep going. He had some great friends. There were 2 in particular, and as my aunt said, they were the 3 musketeers. This was Mac Boyer and Tiny. I don't know Tiny's name other than Tiny, but you can guess Tiny was not Tiny. And they used to get into all kinds of mayhem all over the place. And they would ditch school in the winter and chop a hole in the ice and go skinny dipping. Good moral standards. One of the stories that I love, they were wanting to learn to water ski. And there's not a lot of water in Salt Lake or in the Utah area, but they were near a canal, and so they figured they would just get in the canal and tow it with the truck right next to the canal. Well, that was a problem because now the angle of the rope was pulling the skier into the bank of the canal. So they got a little bit smarter and they put a big board across the tailgate of Mac's truck. Actually, it was Mac's dad's truck, and that became important later. Because the skier had enough drag and there was enough torque on this board, it put the truck in the canal. He told us that story shortly after he was teaching us to water ski down in the Gulf of Mexico. My brother was giving me some good advice as we did this, and I'm thinking if Dad can water ski in a canal, I can do this off a boat in the Gulf of Mexico. It was rather choppy, and my brother had given me the advice that you want to stay in the water as long as you can. You don't want to jump up. So I'm in the water, I'm floating, signal, and the boat takes off. And Tom's words keep ringing in my head, you got to stay in the water as long as you can. Well, I popped up out of the water and thought, no, I got to stay in, so I kept dragging my bum. I loaded with water and I couldn't stand up. My dad's friends, he said they used to dare each other, and if someone would dare you to do something, that was pretty much you had to do it. I think you've seen some movies that have that type of attitude to it. So one time they're up and they're inner tubing off a mountain, and he's there with a group of friends, and they take the inner tubes down a ways, and then they stop the inner tube and climb back up, and they're doing this for quite a while. But the hill would drop off to where you really couldn't see what was going on. Well, one of his friends dared my dad to get in the inner tube and go further down, where they couldn't see what was going on. And so my dad obviously, dared him back, and then got in the inner tube and went to go. And his plan was, let me just get over the hill far enough that they can't see me. I'll put my feet down. I'll stop the inner tube and I can check to see what's going on. So he gets, far enough that he can't see anyone, puts his feet down, and of course that just turned the inner tube around backwards. So now he's going down the mountain backwards. The next thing he knows, he sees a cliff just a few feet the other side of his feet, because he'd gone off the cliff and now he's looking back at the cliff. Ended up landing in a big, snow drift, and so it was all things were safe. Said about the time he got his wits together, he could hear Mac screaming as he went over the cliff backwards. He had the same idea. Well, when my dad went to take his major, and by the way, I got to tell this one as the story goes, but he'd been reading in the college catalog, and as the story goes, he had some trouble pronouncing some of the classes that were with the physics major, and so his buddies dared him and said, I dare you to take that as your major. So my dad ended up as a physicist. That's the family story. There's a little bit more behind it. My dad, a few years ago, admitted to me that he actually had a teacher in high school that had kind of taken him under his wings. My dad designed a nuclear bomb in high school. So that's kind of scary. But in the 1950s, my dad had designed this nuclear bomb. He had a teacher who was a really good physicist. And so at the point where my father is deciding to go on a mission or not, he was offered an internship to go up to Rexburg, or to Idaho Falls to the nuclear test facility and intern. And so his choice was, do I serve the Lord or do I be a nuclear physicist? And he chose to serve the Lord. My father served for 2 years in the Johannesburg, South Africa mission, and get a lot of great stories from there. There was the time that he saw something moving in the back garden, and as he's heading out the door, the Spirit just said, you might want to take that shovel with you. And it turned out to be a black mamba, and they're extremely fast, extremely deadly. And just because he had that shovel, he dropped the shovel just perfectly and cut the head off just mere inches from his leg. There were other stories where, he was a traveling elder and would go for various places. And the South African mission at that time was South Africa. It was a continent. And he told me of moving over 100 miles, carrying his suitcase, riding a bicycle. So really amazing stories. He had this saying, and I wish I could remember it, but it basically meant, my belly is full and my pants are tight. And so this is the polite way to end a meal, and he had a couple of fun sayings like that. He tells us the story one time where he and his companion were out tracking, and they tracked it into a home, and most people spoke English, and it was an English-speaking mission, but he just had a couple phrases in Afrikaans, and this particular family that he had tracked it into did not speak any English. And so he started to converse with them, and as they walked out, his companion turned to him and said, I didn't know you spoke Afrikaans. And my dad said he didn't. And from that point, I wanted to be able to speak in tongues. He had another story that I really like, and we've got a little more details. I didn't know the car. When he was a kid, he worked at Boyer's Garage, and because he was small and more agile, which is not where we end up, it's where we start. But anytime a Volkswagen would came in, they would put him to work on this Volkswagen, and he got to the point where he told Tom that if he ever gets rich, he's going to buy a Volkswagen and a baseball bat. Does not like the Beetle. So they're in this national reserve where at night they would lock up the people and the animals roam free. And as they're driving this Beetle along, they come across an African bull elephant. It was the wrong time of year. And so this elephant got really mad and put up its trunk, started charging the car, so they backed out of there. And they, being good missionaries, they realized, we haven't taken a picture. So they go back. This time the elephant wraps his trunk around the tree and pulls the tree out by the roots. And now it's charging down the road, charging after them. And the Beetle got stuck in reverse. And so they got a little bit of distance, and my dad had to climb out underneath the car and shift it manually under the car, and then get out of there. My father loves my mother. It is such a blessing to grow in a home where there's never any doubt. I always knew my parents loved each other. It's just, I've gotten to the point where I realize what a blessing that is. On their 50th wedding anniversary, he was describing the time that he first saw my mother. He said he and his friends were standing in the hallway, checking out the new crop of chicks coming in. My dad had a way of putting things, but I'm going to read this from his words. At the start of my senior year of high school, I noticed a new girl, and I'm afraid I nearly scared her off by staring at her. Later, I attended a stake dance, and fortunately, so did she. I got up the nerve to ask for a dance, and tried my best to make a good impression. Later, I got up more nerve and asked her for a date. She said no. Sometime after that, I got up more nerve and again asked her for a date. Again, she said no. More time passed, and the third time I asked her for a date, and this time her answer was maybe. The rule in her family, the Macons, was no dating before age 16. She was 15 and a half. So the date would need to be approved by her dad. The proposed date was Saturday, and I was asking Wednesday. There was a school break for the next 2 days. Lucky me. The Macons did not have a telephone, so I went to her home. I took maximum nerve, but I made the visit and asked for the date, and the answer was yes. I'm thankful that the final word was yes. Her love is the most important blessing I will ever receive. I still stare at her, but now she smiles back. So, my parents got married October 6th, 1961, and then along came some boys, and then some girls, and then some boys. At this point, my father has 6 children, 15 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. We were blessed to be in an amazing home. My father was very creative he could make just about anything you wanted. One of my earlier memories is of an electric go-kart that he had made for Tom and I while we were living in Illinois, and we moved away from Illinois when I was 5, so this is a pretty early memory for me. But it was an electric go-kart, ran off a car battery. I thought it was a dryer motor, but the voltage didn't work, and Tom's like, no, it was a starter motor. So he took a starter motor out of the car and made this. I can remember the gas pedal for this, and he used some brass weather stripping for the hinge on this thing. And I remember it was just a contact on-off switch. Tom told me yesterday that he kept getting bit by the electricity on this thing. And Dad finally looked at it and said, yeah, I would do that. One of the later projects he had, he was working for John Deere, and he made an electric riding mower. And it was almost like this was foredestined. And it was called the Electric 90. And it's kind of fun because I've gotten on the internet and looked around quite a bit, and there's like these clubs of people that really enjoy this thing to this day. And it was made for just a few short years, starting in 1974. But he had some good stories about working on that project, and had guys that were telling him, well, if you just reverse the electronics, we can charge the battery back up and you won't need brakes. And yeah, it's a perpetual motion machine. That's really good. But when they went to do the testing on this, they went down to Busch Gardens in Florida, because they needed a lot of lawn in order to work this out. And they finished mowing all the grass at Busch Gardens, so the next time you're down at Busch Gardens, think of that one. And they'd run out of lawn to mow, so they were going through the neighborhoods in shirt and tie, knocking on doors saying, can we mow your grass? Later, he tells me of pitching this to the vice presidents and the CEO. And I'm picturing this big boardroom, and everyone's having their say on whether or not they should make this an industrial pitch. And at the end of the pitch, the CEO, released all the vice presidents and asked my dad to stay around. And once they were out of the room, he called his son because his son mowed grass in order to make some money. And his son shows up and gets on the tractor and he says, take this for a ride. And his son went and took it for a ride. And to ride a riding mower that doesn't really make much sound is pretty cool. And he got done and he was just, he said, well, how was that? And that was a lot of fun. So John Deere made an electric riding mower. And that was the decision on that. Some of the other cool things that my dad was involved with, he made a guidance system for combines. And this was really cool. I was thrilled with this when I was a kid. It was an infrared guidance system, and so you put the combine on the row, and it would actually steer it. It would adjust the deck height and the deck cutting speed, and then he got really smart and put an alarm in it, so in case the farmer went to sleep at the end of the row, because the rows can get pretty long. And that's actually what killed the project, is that made him realize, well, if this malfunctions and goes through the fence, we could have some problems, and so they actually never got into service. Made a computer shifted transmission for Eaton. So when he switched jobs, that was his first project, and that took him from where we lived in Iowa to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and then from Kalamazoo, Michigan to Manchester, England, from Manchester, England to here. We came across one of his talks, and he was saying farewell. It was his last talk in Manchester, and he was saying that at that point, that was his 9th home with my mother, and at that point, they had never lived anywhere longer than 8 years. That was their record. They've been here much longer. 23 years. I had to get some cue cards going.
22 and a half.
Okay. I loved listening to my father speak. He had a lot of callings in the church. Can't tell you how many times he was in the bishopric. Can't tell you how many times he's been a head councilman. He did say his favorite calling is when they released him from the head council and put him in the primary. So he just got to play with the kids and eat Cheerios. But I love to hear him speak. So as I heard the story, the first time he spoke in church was not such a good thing. My grandmother was a chorister, and so she's up leading the hymn. And he had a new hat. And every time he'd sit back in the pew would knock the hat over the front of his face. And he'd disgustedly sit forward and put on the hat, lean back again and knock his hat forward. About the 3rd or 4th time, he just got disgusted and he jumped up and threw the hat down and stomped down and said, "That expletive hat." Grandma was a little embarrassed. But one of the talks that I remember from him, and this is stuck in my head for a long time, unfortunately there's a couple phrases so I had to make up a little bit in the middle, but he started a talk talking about a graveyard, and they had a tombstone on it. And the tombstone said, "As you are now, I once was, and as I am now, you soon will be." And someone had thought to engrave below that, saying that, if I get this right, as you are now, I once was, as I am now, you soon will be. So prepare yourself to follow me. And they said, to follow you is time not well spent, till I know which way you went. I know where my father went. I spent my life following this man. He is a man of wisdom. He is a man of strength. He's a man of love. We are so blessed to have been in this family. He was a man of principle. He always held strong to the principles. You knew where true north was with that. I remember him teaching us, when I say us, the scouts, about being square. We were freezing. We were up in northern Minnesota. My dad was the only adult with the group, and we were on a winter survival trip. And the first night was kind of warm. It was only 23 below zero, and the second night was 40 below zero. And so I remember Sunday morning, we held a church service on the ice, northern Minnesota, about 5 miles from the Canadian border, and taking the sacrament with my dad, and him teaching us about raising your arm to the square. And he held it to the square. He said there's an exactness to it. When you covenant in this church, and we do it all the time, how many times do you raise your hand? When you sustain someone, that is called a covenant with a common consent. Do you remember that? And that is a covenant. And he said, you raise your arm to the square. So if you ever are near the Allens and they ask to sustain someone, watch out for the elders because they're coming out. My father lived a good life. My father was a great example. I'm going to miss him terribly. Used to love to work with him. He could never sit still. Anyone you talk to, they'll tell you about projects, things that he built for them. You know, he'd come and visit, and he wanted to be busy. We'd go out to Utah every summer. My mom would just want to go visit all the family. My dad would want to go have fun or go to work, one of the two. And, you know, he came out and helped me build things. He jumped in the truck, and one of Mark's fondest memories of the dad going up and spending a week rewiring a house. Sweaty old, stinky old house. And that's where the joy was with my dad. One of the things that drove him the most nuts about the last few years with Parkinson's is that he just couldn't work. I mean, who gets disabled but puts a lift system in so you can get onto the John Deere tractor? Oh, I gotta tell you about that one, sorry. My dad was a creator who made a cookie maker. He made a John Deere brand cookie maker. Well, we lived in Michigan, and we come from Iowa, and he had a nice garden tractor, and it had a really big snowblower on it. And it was so big that it would take care of the driveway almost faster than you could warm up the tractor and get dressed. And so he would just continue going down the street, just clearing driveways, because the tractor was out, and we just go help some people out. And from that point, the cookies would just start coming in. Nothing runs like a deer. Every time we go past the field and you see a tractor, he'd say, put your hand over your heart. There goes your bread and butter. I'm still quoting my dad to this day. The importance of a meeting is inversely proportional to its length. I need to cry. Thank you for all your support. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for the example.